There's one character we haven't been paying too much attention to, and these are the 3 strongest reasons why the Traveler matters. One of the first things you'll probably want to know is the damage, and just how much of it can the Traveler dish out. And in all honesty, it's actually very decent, and in some cases, even better than expected, and it all depends on how you look at it, since the damage you will deal in a vacuum doesn't really make sense, and you need to place the Traveler in a team of 4 to see the full effects of it. Now for the Geo version, activating the Resonance bonus with another same element teammate, and then using a duo of strong damage dealers, which can provide an amplifying reaction like Melt or Vaporize, is a great solution, since not only will you be dealing lots of reaction damage, but there's also going to be plenty of crystals on the ground for those awesome shields. But it's important to note that when talking about damage specifically, it's going to be Geo Traveler doing the heavy lifting, while Anemo focuses more on synergizing with other teammates by providing Swirl and, if chosen, the Viridescent artifact debuff. Speaking of synergy, there's actually 2 insane constellations Geo Traveler has, and the first one increases everyone's critical rate by 10% while you have the burst on the field, and the 4th constellation will replenish up to 25 energy points back to the Traveler if they manage to hit up to 5 enemies, which means you almost refund yourself with 50% energy for the next burst, which is an amazing thing to have if you don't use more than 1 Geo teammate in your composition. And even the Meteorite skill itself has a short 8-second cooldown with a whopping 350% damage multiplier at talent level 6, which is considered pretty generous without using any other outside help to further boost the damage. And let's not forget that damage coming from the character isn't always the biggest focus, and the last constellation of Anemo Traveler can reduce the enemy's resistance by 20% of the element the burst gets absorbed with. Basically, it's easy to ignore the Traveler after unlocking a lot of new and shiny characters that are all fun to use in your gameplay, but when you have awesome damage capabilities of the Geo version and decent synergy talents with Anemo, you are then presented with an opportunity to use someone who has been there since you've started playing the game. Even if you don't want to use the Traveler as your damage dealer or support, there's plenty of things you could be missing out on just because you're not utilizing some of the unique features. And it's true that for the most part, the Geo Traveler is a glorified puzzle solver in Liyue region, much like Amber is when you use her at the start of the game to shoot those balloons or activate pyro structures. But even then, there's a reason why miHoYo puts so much emphasis on teaching the players the importance of Geo structures and the uniqueness of the Traveler itself, which even crosses over into the Anemo part of the deal. For example, there was the Peculiar Wonderland event where you had few of the challenges that were quite annoying, especially for those playing on their mobile devices, and you could mitigate these challenges by taking the advantage of the meteorite that Traveler was able to produce. So you could place the structure on the edge of the stage where the goal was not to fall off the arena where the ground below was disappearing, and you could literally just stand on the edge, generate few of the meteorites on the side, and just wait out until the challenge was over. And you could achieve a similar effect with another trial where you had to jump through a series of incoming ground attacks, which you could also make it less challenging by creating 2 structures and just jumping between them instead. And if you thought that these are just some limited opportunities, then there is also the Spiral Abyss and the dreadful 11-2 stage where you need to guard the core against the enemies. And the beauty of this particular floor is that you can use both Anemo and Geo Traveler versions in different ways to prevent the core from getting damaged. And the first way would be by summoning the meteorites directly in front of some enemies who use ranged attacks so that their projectiles get blocked, and even better, the ones who fight in melee will have to walk towards you and won't be able to bypass the structures, which essentially means you're now funneling their focus in a very narrow way. And since you can get up to 2 of these meteorites, with the right timing and positioning, things can definitely get easier. And the second way is also something the game won't tell you about, but you're able to get the focus of the enemy you pull with your elemental skill, and their attention will shift towards you. So if you have any enemies, then make them follow you away from the core. And if you enjoy this kind of neat stuff, we share more of it on Twitter, link in the description. And these are but a few of examples that showcase the versatility of the Traveler's abilities, and you don't even have to rely on good damage numbers or equipment in order to make the Traveler viable. In fact, if we were to take a look at equipment, there's plenty of free-to-play friendly options like the Festering Desire from 1.2 event, and even a fully refined Harbinger of Dawn is an insanely useful weapon for the support damage dealer build. And to top it off, there's always the option to go for Viridescent or Archaic Petra artifact sets to further boost your team's performance. So in essence, always make sure to take your time with any new type of content and see if the Traveler can be used effectively in it, because it seems to be the more we keep playing the game, the more surprising results we get to see from this not so talkative adventurer. Of course, this doesn't mean you must use this character, but it does offer a nice alternative solution for those who are strictly free to play or spend very little on the game. And even then, a lot of us know that artifacts and weapons have the most influence over your character's power, but having great damage multipliers, low cooldowns, and cheap energy costs is a hard thing to say no to. Just like with every character in the game, there's always going to be some sort of a drawback when playing them, and with the Traveler, the most common complaints you'll hear is the fact that you need to manually travel back and forth to the Statue of the Seven to resonate with a different element, not to mention the talent levels are also independent from each of the resonated element, which kind of makes sense, but then there's the issue of needing to have different types of talent books in order to raise the levels, and without proper planning, you could be stuck for up to a week depending on how busy your life schedule is, just to get up to level 6 of each talent. On the bright side, if you decide to level the talents with weekly boss materials, you will need to use Duval and Sai, which is only shared between Amber, Beidou, and Chongyun. That more or less implies that these aren't the most popular characters, judging from previous community polls. So if you decide to increase the power of the talents, the Ascension materials aren't going to be that big of a deal, especially since no other 5-star character needs them. And currently, it does feel like Geo has far more better damage than Anemo, just by looking at talent damage multipliers, cooldowns, and the amount of time it takes to cast these skills in bursts, and things might change in the future, but the current state of the game puts a lot of emphasis on the most amount of damage in the least amount of time, so don't be surprised if you see a lot of players using Geo Traveler instead of Anemo, even if the latter does provide its own useful powers. Now of course, one of the things that are great about the Traveler is their ability to change the element on demand, even if you aren't going to be making the most cheap transition, since you will still probably need to change out the elemental damage goblet and also raise their talents separately, and even in some cases, you will also need to change out their weapons. This of course gets even more expensive if you use separate artifact sets like Viridescent and Archaic Petra, so the only thing that remains between the element shifting is the actual level of the Traveler, but besides that, you could say that every element represents a totally different character that you need to build. But on the other side of the coin lies the long-term potential of our protagonist, and with the upcoming Inazuma region, we can expect to see a new element they will be able to resonate with. That could also mean having a properly built Geo, Anemo, and then a third element character end up as a pretty powerful thing to have a control over. And things will obviously get even more ridiculous once we get all elements unlocked in the long run. The deconstruction of the Traveler is an important topic to discuss and understand, since it's a character who we will be using throughout the whole game, and getting to know someone better who plays a major role in the entire story won't hurt the slightest bit. And we've looked at damage output, the versatility of skills, and even criticized some of the most common problems our protagonist has, but even then, it's hard to deny the mysterious nature of where the long-term investment will lead to this character in the next few years, but sticking around with them and at least paying some attention can be a great way to guarantee yourself a strong teammate in future content. Speaking of which, producing this kind of content always takes a lot of effort, and if you've been a long-time viewer or just someone who's new, make sure to double check if you're subscribed to this channel by hitting the bell notification on, and don't forget to gently press that like button. And that's all you need to do in order to support the channel, but if you want to go an extra mile, make sure to follow us on Twitter, link in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.